Something unusual happened in North American retail. Billions of dollars just quietly disappeared from American stores, and there wasn't a single protest sign in sight. This was the silent boycott. No leaders, no slogans, just millions of Canadians deciding on their own not to shop in the US for years. Heading south to shop was almost a Canadian tradition. It kept US businesses in border towns thriving. But then, almost overnight, Canadians stopped making those trips. And the effect was huge. There weren't any big headlines or angry crowds, just empty parking lots and falling sales numbers. This is a story about how quiet, personal choices can change economies and send a message that's louder than any protest. The silent boycott shows us the real power of consumers, the pride of a nation, and just how vulnerable businesses can be when they depend on shoppers from across the border. It's about more than just shopping. It's about who we are, how our economies work, and the powerful message money can send without a word. When you look at this movement, you see how regular people can influence big companies and even international relationships without ever raising their voices. The takeaway? Sometimes the strongest statements are made in total silence. And this is one example that people will be talking about for a long time. The shift didn't happen overnight. Starting around 2017, Canadians began quietly spending less in the US. What began as a small dip became a national trend, with fewer trips and less money spent per visit. By 2018, the decline accelerated, and the pandemic in 2020 sealed the change. Border closures forced Canadians to shop at home. Habits broke. Canadians discovered local businesses and e-commerce, building new loyalties. When borders reopened, the rushback never came. The silent boycott had become a new normal. By 2023, cross-border shopping remained far below its peak, even with a stable exchange rate. This wasn't just a reaction to politics or the pandemic. It was a lasting shift in consumer culture. The timeline is clear: slow beginnings, a surge of national pride, and a final push from the pandemic. The result? A retail landscape transformed, and habits that may never return to the old ways. The silent boycott proved that once consumer habits change, they're hard to reverse. Millions of small choices created a powerful economic wave. The message was clear. Canadians had found new priorities, and the US retail sector felt every dollar of it. Political tensions between Canada and the US fueled the silent boycott. Trade disputes, tariffs, and tough rhetoric made shopping in the US feel less like a bargain and more like supporting an adversary. Canadian tariffs on American goods became a point of pride, turning everyday purchases into acts of patriotism. Social media and news stories amplified the call to buy Canadian, making local shopping a national movement. The message was simple: keep Canadian money in Canada, especially when the relationship with the US felt strained. Media coverage of border hassles and political spats only deepened the divide. Shopping became emotional, excitement replaced by anxiety and resentment. The fun of a cross-border deal faded, replaced by a sense of duty to support home. The silent boycott was as much about pride as it was about price. What made the silent boycott so powerful was its invisibility. No protests, no leaders, just millions of private decisions to shop local. US retailers saw the impact in their financial reports: fewer Canadian customers, lower sales, and empty aisles near the border. The movement was impossible to counter because it had no single demand or organizer. Technology made it easy for Canadians to find local alternatives, and social media reinforced the trend. Online forums and posts created a sense of shared purpose even without formal coordination. The boycott's strength was its personal nature, rooted in identity, pride, and economic self-interest. People weren't told to boycott, they simply felt it was right. The result? A quiet but undeniable shift that left US stores scrambling for answers. The empty aisles spoke volumes. Sometimes silence is the loudest protest of all. The silent boycott hit US retailers hard, especially in border towns. Giants like Target and Walmart saw sales drop, and smaller businesses, restaurants, gas stations, felt the pinch too. Billions in lost revenue forced companies to rethink their strategies and in some cases downsize or close stores. The once reliable Canadian customer became an unpredictable variable. Meanwhile, Canadian businesses thrived. Local spending boosted jobs and services, especially for small businesses and artisans. There were trade-offs. Some Canadians paid higher prices or had fewer choices, but most saw it as a worthwhile investment in their own economy. The psychological reward of supporting Canada outweighed the lure of a cross-border bargain. The silent boycott wasn't just about saving money, it was about economic sovereignty. US companies learned that Canadian loyalty could not be taken for granted. The shift made Canada's retail sector more resilient and less dependent on US trends. For many, the benefits of shopping local far outweighed the costs. The message was clear: Canadian dollars, Canadian jobs. Major US retailers became case studies in the silent boycott's impact. Target's border stores, once reliant on Canadian shoppers, saw foot traffic plummet. Walmart's US locations near the border lost sales, while Walmart Canada thrived. Outlet malls designed for Canadians, like those in Niagara Falls and Burlington, saw fewer visitors and declining sales. The ripple effect hit food courts, service providers, and even bus tour operators. E-commerce giants weren't immune. Canadians shifted to .ca sites, keeping money and jobs at home. Amazon and others saw their Canadian operations grow as shoppers avoided US domains to dodge duties and delays. The boycott wasn't just about physical trips, it was a digital movement too. Every click and purchase became a conscious choice to support Canada. The silent boycott forced US retailers to rethink their approach to the Canadian market. The lesson: adapt or lose out. The digital age made the boycott borderless and more powerful than ever. The silent boycott reshaped Canadian consumer identity. Shoppers became more thoughtful, choosing value and local impact over just low prices. Canadian brands, artisans, and online marketplaces flourished as people sought out homegrown alternatives. Social media and websites promoting Canadian products gained popularity, fueling a renaissance for local businesses. The weekend cross-border trip was replaced by visits to farmers' markets, parks, and city centers, boosting local tourism and hospitality. Money stayed in Canadian communities, strengthening local economies and community life. Canadians realized their spending choices had real power to influence corporations and make political statements quietly. The new habit of thinking local first is here to stay. The legacy: a more informed, loyal, and empowered Canadian shopper. Local loyalty, forged in crisis, will shape the market for years to come. The silent boycott is a lesson for the future of US-Canada business. Public sentiment and national identity matter as much as trade deals. US companies must rebuild trust and prove they value Canadian customers. Canadian businesses must keep innovating. Patriotism alone won't sustain loyalty. Cross-border shopping will be more intentional, not a default. Canadians will research, compare, and weigh the true cost before heading south. The retail landscape is now more competitive and dynamic on both sides. The silent boycott proved consumers are powerful economic actors. Billions of quiet choices redrew the map of international commerce. In the end, the loudest message was delivered in silence, and it changed everything.